Ravish.
Yes, sure. We're in page 163. This is the book page. Repeating greatness. Ron Bruder is not a household name, but he is a great leader. In 1985, he stood at a crosswalk with his two daughters, waiting for the light to change so that they could cross the street. A perfect opportunity, he thought, to teach the young girls a valuable lesson. He pointed across the street to the red glow of the do not walk signal and asked them what they thought the signal meant. It meant we have to stand here, they replied. Are you sure? He asked rhetorically. How do you know it's not telling us to run? Soft spoken and almost always wearing a well tailored three-piece suit when he comes to work, Bruder looks like you would imagine a conservative executive to look like. But don't assume you know how things work simply based on what you see. Bruder is anything but a stereotype. Though he has enjoyed the trappings of success, he is not motivated by them. They have always been the unintended byproduct of his work. Bruder is driven by a clear sense of why. He sees the world in which people accept the lives they live and do the things they do, not because they have to, but because no one ever showed them an alternative. This is the lesson he was teaching his daughters that day at the crosswalk. There is always another perspective to be considered. That Bruder always starts with why has enabled him to achieve great things for himself. But more significantly, it is his ability to share his why thought, the things he does that inspires those around him to do great things for themselves. But most of us, the career path Bruder has followed is incidental. But why he does things has never changed. Everything Bruder has ever done starts with his why, his unyielding belief that if you can simply show someone that an alternate route is possible, it can open the possibility that such a route can be followed. Though the work he is doing today is world altering, Bruder hasn't always been in the world peace business. Like many inspiring leaders, he has changed the course of an industry. But Ron Bruder is no one hit wonder. He has been able to repeat his success and change the course of multiple industries multiple times. A senior executive at the food conglomerate that sold vegetables, canned goods, and meats decided to buy a travel agency for his nephew. He asked Bruder, as the chief financial officer of the company at the time, to take a look at the financials of the agency before he went through with the purchase. Seeing an opportunity others didn't, Bruder decided to join the small agency to help lead it. Once there, he saw how all the other travel agencies worked and took an alternative course. Greenwell became the first travel agency on eastern seaboard to take advantage of new technologies and fully computerize their operations. Not only did they become one of the most successful companies in the region, but after only a year, their business model became a standard for the whole industry. Then Bruder did it again. A former client of Bruder's, Sam Rostengarten, was in some dirty businesses: coal, oil, and gas, all industries that created brownfields, land that had been contaminated by their operations. Little could be done with brownfields. They were too polluted to develop, and the liability to clean them up was so high that the insurance premiums alone made it prohibitive to even try. But Bruder doesn't see challenges the same way as everyone else. Most avoided brownfields because they could only see the cost to clean them up. Bruder focused instead on the actual cleaning. His alternative perspective revealed the perfect solution. Bruder had already formed his real estate development company, Brookhill, with 18 employees. He was doing quite well. Knowing what he needed to do to seize the opportunity, he approached Dames and Moore, one of the largest environmental engineering companies in the world, and shared his new perspective with them. They loved the idea and formed a partnership to pursue. With an engineering company with 18,000 people on board, their perceived risk was greatly minimized, and the insurance companies were happy to offer affordable insurance. With affordable insurance in place, Credit Suisse First Boston offered financing that gave Brookhill the ability to buy, remediate, redevelop, and sell almost 200 million worth of former environmentally contaminated properties. Brookhill, so called because Bruder comes from Brooklyn, and as he puts it, it's a long uphill climb to get out of Brooklyn, was the pioneer of brownfield redevelopment industry, an industry that thrives to this day. Bruder's why not only steered a path that was good for business, but in the process also helped clean up the environment. It doesn't matter what Ron Bruder does. The industries and the challenges are incidental. What never changes is why he does things. Bruder knows that no matter how good an opportunity looks on paper, no matter how smart he is, and no matter his track record, he would never be able to achieve anything unless there were others to help him. He knows that success is a team sport. He has a remarkable ability to attract those who believe what he believes. Talented people are drawn to him with one request: how can I help? Having defied accepted perspectives and revolutionized more than one industry, Bruder has now set his sights on a bigger challenge: world peace. He founded the Education for Employment Foundation, the megaphone that would help him do it. The EFE Foundation is making significant headway in helping young men and women in the Middle East to significantly alter the course of their lives and indeed the course of the region. Just as he taught his daughters at the crosswalk that there is always an alternative route, he brings an alternative perspective to the people in Middle East. Like of all Bruder's past success, the EFE Foundation will drive businesses and do tremendous amounts of good in the process. Bruder doesn't run companies, he leads movements. All movements are personal. It started on September 11th, 2001. Like so many of us, Bruder turned his attention to the Middle East after the attacks to ask why something like that could happen. He understood that if such an event could happen once, it could happen again. And for that, the lives of his own daughters, he wanted to find a way to prevent that. In the course of trying to figure out what he could do, he made a remarkable discovery that went much deeper than protecting his daughters or even prevention of terrorism in the United States. In America, he realized the vast majority of young people wake up in the morning with a feeling that there is an opportunity for them in the future. Regardless of the economy, most young boys and girls who grow up in the United States have an inherent sense of optimism that they can achieve something if they want to live the American dream. A young boy growing up in Gaza or a young girl living in Yemen does not wake up every day with the same feeling. Even if they have the desire, the same optimism is not there. It is too easy to point and say that the culture is different. That is not actionable. The real reason is that there is a distinct lack of institutions to give young people in the region a sense of optimism for their future. A college education in Jordan, for example, may offer some social status, but it doesn't necessarily prepare a young adult for what lies ahead. The education system in cases like this perpetuates a system of cultural pessimism. Bruder realized the problems we face with terrorism in the West have less to do with what young boys and girls in the Middle East think about America and more to do with what they think about themselves and their own vision of future. Through the EFE Foundation, Bruder is setting up programs across the Middle East to teach young adults the hard and soft skills that will help them feel like they have opportunity in life. To feel like they can be in control of their own destinies, Bruder is using the EFE Foundation to share his why on a global scale, to teach people that there is always an alternative to the path that they think they are on. The Education for Employment Foundation is not an American charity hoping to do good in faraway lands. It is a global movement. Each EFE operation runs independently, with locals making up the majority of their local boards. Local leaders take personal responsibility to give young men and women that feeling of opportunity by giving them the skills, knowledge, and most importantly, the confidence to choose an alternative path for themselves. Mayada Abu Jaber is leading the movement in Jordan. Mohammad Naja is spreading the cause in Gaza and West Bank. And Main Alari Ani is proving that a cause can even change a culture in Yemen. In Yemen, children can expect to receive 9 years of education. This is one of the lowest in the world. In the United States, children can expect 16 years. Inspired by Bruder, Alaryani sees Alaryani sees such an amazing opportunity for young men and women to change their perspective and take greater control of their own future. He set out to find capital to jumpstart his EFE operation in Sanaa's Yemen's capital. And in 1 week, he was able to raise $50,000. The speed at which he raised the amount is pretty good, even by our philanthropic standards. But this is Yemen, and Yemen has no culture of philanthropy, making his achievement that much more remarkable. Yemen is also one of the poorest nations in the region. But when you tell people why you're doing what you're doing, remarkable things happen. Across the region, everyone involved in EFE believes that they can help teach their brothers and sisters and sons and daughters the skills that will help them change path that they think they are on. They're working to help the youth across the region believe that their future is bright and full of opportunity. And they don't do it for Bruder, they do it for themselves. That's the reason EFE will change the world. Sitting at the top of the megaphone, at the point of why, Bruder's role is to inspire, to start the moment. But it is those who believe who will affect the real change and keep movement going. Anyone, regardless of where they live, what they do, or their nationality, can participate in this movement. It's about feeling like we belong. If you believe that there is an alternative path to the one we're on, and all we have to do is to point, then visit the website efefoundation.org and join the movement. To change the world takes the support of all those who believe. Let's start the next chapter. Know why, know how, then what. They marched in, single file. Not a word was spoken. No one made any eye contact with anyone else. They all looked the same, their heads shaved, their clothes grey and tattered, their boots dusty. One by one, they filled a large, cavernous room like a hangar from science fiction movie. The only color was grey. The walls were grey. Dust and smoke filled the space, making the air look grey. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of these drone people sat on neatly organized benches, row after row, a sea of grey conformity. They all watched a projection of huge talking head on the screen in front of the room that filled the entire wall. This apparent, this apparent leader recited dogma and propaganda, stating proudly that they were in complete control. They had achieved perfection. They were free of pests, or so they thought. Running down one of the tunnels that led into the cavernous hangar, a lone blonde woman. She wore bright red shorts and a crisp white t shirt. Like a lighthouse, her complexion and the color of her clothes seemed to shine through grey air. Pursued by security, she railed with a sledgehammer. This would not end well for the status quo. On January 22nd, 1984, Apple launched their Macintosh computer with their now famous commercial depicting an Orwellian scene of totalitarian regime, totalitarian regime, holding control over a population and promised that 1984 won't be like 1984. But this advertising was much more than just advertising. It was not about the features and benefits of a new product. It was not about a differentiating value proposition. It was, for all intents and purpose, a manifesto, a poetic ode to Apple's why. It was the film version of an individual rebelling against the status quo, igniting a revolution. And though their products have changed and fashions have changed, this commercial is as relevant today as it was 25 years ago when it first aired. And that's why a why never changes. What you do can change with the times, but why you do it never does. The commercial is one of the many things the company has done or said over the years to show or tell the outside world what they believe. All Apple's advertising and communications, their products, partnerships, packaging, their store designs, they're all what's to Apple's why. Proof that they actively challenge status quo, thinking to empower the individual. Ever notice that their advertising never show groups enjoying their products? Always individuals? Their Think Different campaign depicted individuals who thought differently, never groups. Always individuals. And when Apple tells us to think different, they're not just describing themselves. The ad showed pictures of Pablo Picasso, Martha Graham, Jim Henderson, Alfred Hitchcock, to name a few, with the line Think Different on the upper right hand side of the page. Apple does not embody the rebel spirit because they associated themselves with known rebels. They chose known rebels because they embody the same rebel spirit. The why came before the creative solution in advertising. Not a single ad showed a group. This is no accident. Empowering the individual spirit is why Apple exists. Apple knows their why, and so do we. Agree with them or not, we know what they believe because they tell us. Speak clearly, and you shall be heard. An organization is represented by the cone in a three-dimensional view of the golden circle. This organized system sits atop another, system, the marketplace. The marketplace is made up of all customers and potential customers, all the press, the shareholders, all the competition, suppliers, and all the money. This system is inherently chaotic and disorganized. The only contact that the organized system has with the disorganized system is at the base, the what level. Everything an organization says and does communicates with the leader's vision to the outside world. All the products and services that the company sells, all the marketing and the advertising, all the contact with the outside communicate this. If people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if all the things happening at the what level do not clearly represent why the company exists, then the ability to inspire is severely complicated. When a company is small, this is not an issue because the founder has plenty of direct contacts with the outside world. Trusted how types may be in short supply, and the founder opts to make a majority of big decisions. The founder or leader actually goes out and talks to employees, sells the product, and hires most, if not all, the employees. As the company grows, however, systems and processes are added, and other people will join. The cause, embodied by an individual, slowly morphs into a structured organization, and the cone starts to take shape. As it grows, the leader's role changes. He will no longer be the loudest part of the megaphone. He will become the source of the message that is to flow through the megaphone. When a company is small, it revolves around the personality of the founder. There is no debate that the founder's personality is the personality of the company. Why then do we think things change just because a company is successful? What's the difference between Steve Jobs, the man, and Apple, the company? Nothing. What's the difference between Sir Richard Branson's personality and Virgin's personality? Nothing. As the company grows, the CEO's job is to personify the why, the ooze to take it, the ooze of it, to talk about it, to preach it, to be a symbol of what the company believes. They are the intention, and what the company says and does is their voice. Like Martin Luther King and his social movement, the leader's job is no longer to close all the deeds, it is to inspire. As the organization grows, their leader becomes the leader becomes physically removed farther and farther from what the company does and even farther away from the outside market. I love asking CEOs what their biggest priority is, and depending on their size or structure, I generally get one of two answers: customers or shareholders. Sadly, there aren't many CEOs of companies of any reasonable size who have daily contact with customers anymore. And customers and shareholders alike both exist outside the organization in chaotic world of marketplace. Just as the cone demonstrates, the CEO's job, the leader's responsibility, is not to focus on the outside market, it is to focus on the layers directly beneath. How? The leader must ensure that there are people on the team who believe what they believe and know how to build it. The how types are responsible for understanding why and must come to work every day and develop the systems and hire the people who are ultimately responsible for bringing the why to life. The general employees are responsible for demonstrating the why to the outside world in whatever the company says or does. The challenge is that they are able to do it clearly. Remember the biology of the golden circle. The why exists in the part of brain that controls feelings and decisions but not language. What exists in part of brain that controls rational thought and language. Comparing the biology of the brain, to the three-dimensional rendering of the golden circle reveals a profound insight. The leader, sitting at the top of the organization, is the inspiration, the symbol of the reason we do what we do. They represent the emotional limbic brain. What the company says and does represents the rational thought and the language of the neocortex. Just as it is hard for people to speak their feelings, like someone trying to explain why they love their spouse, it is equally hard for an organization to explain its why. The part of the brain that controls feelings and the part that controls language are not the same. Given that the cone is simply a three-dimensional rendering of the golden circle, which is firmly grounded in the biology of human decision making, the logic follows that organizations of any size will struggle to clearly communicate their why. Translated into business terms, and this means that trying to communicate your differentiating value proposition is really hard. Put bluntly, the struggle that so many companies have differentiate or communicate their true value to the outside world is not a business problem, it's a biology problem. And just like person struggling to put her emotions into words, we rely on metaphors, imagery, and analogies in an attempt to communicate how we feel. Absent the proper language to share our deep emotions, our purpose, cause, or belief, we tell stories. We use symbols. We create tangible things for those who believe what we believe to point to and say, that's why I'm inspired. If done properly, that's what marketing, branding, and products and services become a way for organizations to communicate to the outside world. Communicate clearly, and you shall be understood. Okay. Let's start with chapter 10. Communication is not about speaking, it's about listening. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who would become a symbol of entire civil rights movement, chose to deliver his famous I have zero dream speech in front of another symbol, the Lincoln Memorial. Like King, Lincoln stands, or in case of the memorial, sits as a symbol of American value of freedom for all. Great societies understand the importance of symbols as a way of reinforcing their values, of capturing their beliefs. Dictators understand the importance of symbols all too well, but in their case, the symbols are usually of them and not of a larger belief. Symbols help us to make tangible that which is intangible. And the only reason symbols have meaning is because we infuse them with meaning. That meaning lives in our mind, not in the item itself. Only when the purpose, cause, or belief is clear can a symbol command great power. The flag, for example, is nothing more than a symbol out of the nation's values and beliefs. And we follow the flag into battle. That's some serious power. Ever notice the patch on the American flag on a soldier's right arm? It's backwards. There was no mistake made. It's like that on purpose. A flag flying on a staff, as an army was rushing into battle, would appear backwards if viewed from the right side. To put it the other way around on the right shoulder would appeal as if the soldier were in retreat. Our flag is imbued with so much meaning that some have tried to pass laws banning its desecration. It's not the material out of which the flag is sewn that these patriots aim to protect. The laws they propose have nothing to do with the destruction of property. Their goal is to protect the meaning the symbol represents. The why. The laws they drafted tried to protect the intangible set of values and beliefs by protecting the symbol of those values and beliefs. Though the laws have been struck down by the Supreme Court, they have spurred contentious and emotionally charged debates. They pit our desire for freedom of expression with our desire to protect the symbol of that freedom. Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, knew all too well the power of symbols. In 1982, he was the first president to invite a hero to sit on the balcony of the House chamber during the State of the Union address, a tradition that has continued every year since. A man who exuded optimism, Reagan knew the value of symbolizing the values of America instead of just talking about them. His guest, who sat with the First Lady, was Lenny Skutnik, a government employee who had dived into the icy Potomac just days before to save a woman who had fallen from a helicopter that was attempting to rescue her after an Air Florida plane crashed into the river. Reagan was trying to make a point that words are hollow, but deeds and values are deep. After he told Skutnik's story, he waxed. Don't let anyone tell you that America's best days are behind her, that the American spirit has vanquished. We've seen it triumph too often in our lives and stop believing it now. Skutnik became Reagan's symbol of courage. Most companies have logos, but few have been able to convert their logos into meaningful symbols. Because most companies are bad at communicating what they believe, so it follows that most logos are devoid of any meaning. At best, they serve as icons to identify a company and its products. Symbol cannot have any deep meaning until we know why it exists in terms bigger than simply to identify the company. Without clarity of why, a logo is just a logo. To say that a logo stands for quality, service, innovation, and the like only reinforces its status as just a logo. These qualities are about the company and not about the cause. Don't forget the dictators. They understand the power of symbols, except the symbols are often of them. Likewise, so many companies act like dictators. It's all about them and what they want. They tell us what to do, they tell us what we need, they tell us they have the answers, but they do not inspire us and they do not command our loyalty. And to take that analogy a step further, the way dictators maintain their power is through fear, reward, and every other manipulation they can think of. People follow dictators not because they want to, but because they have to. For companies to be perceived as great leaders and not dictators, all their symbols, including logos, need to stand for something in which we all believe, something we can all support. That takes clarity, discipline, and consistency. For a logo to become a symbol, people must be inspired to use their logo to say something about who they are. Couture fashion labels are the most obvious example of this. People use them to demonstrate status, but many of them are somewhat generic in what they symbolize. There is a more profound example, Harley Davidson. There are people who walk around with Harley Davidson tattoos on their bodies. That's insane. They've tattooed a corporate logo on their skin. Some of them don't even own the product. Why would rational people tattoo a corporation logo on their bodies? The reason is simple. After years of Harley being crystal clear about what they believe, after years of being disciplined about a set of values and guiding principles, and after years of being doggedly consistent about everything they say and do, their logos have their logo has become a symbol. It is it is it no longer simply identifies a company and its products. It identifies a belief. In truth, most people who tattoo Harley Davidson logos on their bodies have no idea what the stock price of Harley is. They have no idea about some management shakeup the week before. That symbol is no longer about Harley. The logo embodies an entire value set on their own. The symbol is no longer about Harley, it's about them. Randy Fowler, a former US Marine and now general manager of Harley Davidson dealership in California, proudly sports a large Harley tattoo on his left arm. It symbolizes who I am, he says. Mostly, it says I'm American. Customer and company are now one the same. The meaning of Harley Davidson has value in people's lives because for those who believe in Harley's why, it helps them express the meaning of their own lives. Because of Harley's clarity, discipline, and consistency, most will know what that symbol means, even if you don't subscribe to it yourselves. That's the reason why, when someone walks into a bar with a big Harley tattoo on his arm, we take a step back and give him a wide berth. The symbol has become so meaningful, in fact, that 12% of Harley Davidson revenues are strictly from merchandising. That's remarkable. It's not just logos, however, that can serve as symbols. Symbols are any tangible representation of a clear set of values and beliefs. An ink stained finger for Arrakis was a symbol of a new beginning. A London double decker bus or a cowboy hat, both are symbols of national cultures. But national symbols are easy because most nations have a clear sense of culture that has been reinforced and repeated for generations. It is not a company or organization that decides what its symbols mean. It is a group outside the megaphone in the chaotic marketplace who decide if, based on things that they see and hear, the outsiders can clearly and consistently report what an organization believes, then and only then can a symbol start to take on meaning. It is the truest test of how effective a megaphone has been produced. When clarity is able to filter all the way through the organization and come to life in everything that comes out of it. Go back to Apple's 1984 commercial at the beginning of chapter 9. For those who have seen it, does it make you think about Apple and its products? Or do you simply like the sentiment or the line, think different, speak it to you? If you're a Mac customer, you probably love this commercial. It may even give you goosebumps when you watch it. A surefire test that the why is connecting with you on vis- visceral and limbic level. In fact, this commercial, after you learned it was from Apple, may have reinforced your decision to buy a Mac, whether for the first time or the 10th time. The commercial, like Apple's advertising, is one of the things Apple has said or done that reinforces what they believe. It is every bit consistent with clear beliefs we know they embody. And if the commercial speaks to you and you're not an Apple lover, odds are you still like the idea of thinking differently. The message of that ad is one of the things Apple does to tell the story. It is one of the what's to their why. It is a symbol. It is for these reasons that we say of a piece of advertising. It really speaks to me. It's not really speaking to you, it's speaking to the millions of people who saw the ad. When we say that something like that speaks to me, what we're really saying is, through all this clutter and noise, I can hear it. I can hear it and I will listen. This is what it means for a message that comes out of the megaphone to resonate. Everything that comes out of the base of megaphone serves as a way for an organization to articulate what it believes. What a company says and does are the means by which the company speaks. Too many companies put a disproportionate amount of weight on their products or services simply because those are the things that bring in the money. But there are many more things at the base of the megaphone that play an equal role in speaking to the outside world. Though products may drive sales, they alone cannot create loyalty. In fact, a company can create loyalty among people who aren't even customers. I spoke favorably of Apple long before I bought one, and I spoke disparagingly of a certain PC brand, even though I had been buying their product for years. Okay, now let's stop here and let's see if you all have
Bhavi,
understood it.
Bhavi, there's
Yes,
only
ma'am.
one student called Devamma. So you can
Okay,
read for another 5 more minutes and then
all
you
right.
discuss with Devamma. Hmm?
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Apple's clarity, discipline, and consistency, their ability to build a megaphone, not a company, that is clear and loud, is what has given them the ability to command such loyalty. They are accused of having a cult-like following. Those inside the company are often accused of following the cult of Steve. All of these compliments or insults are indications that others have taken on the cause and made it their own. That experts describe their products and marketing as a lifestyle reinforces that people who love Apple products are using what Apple does to demonstrate their own personal identity. We call it lifestyle marketing because people have integrated commercial products into the style of their lives. Apple, with great efficiency, built a perfectly clear megaphone, leveraged the law of diffusion, and invited others to help spread the gospel, not for the company, for themselves. Even their promotions and partnerships serve as tangible proof of what they believe. In 2003 and 2004, Apple ran a promotion for iTunes with Pepsi, the cola branded as the choice of the next generation. It made sense that the Apple would do their deal with Pepsi, the primary challenger of Coca-Cola, the status quo. Everything Apple does, everything they say and do, serves as tangible proof of what they believe. The reason I use Apple so extensively throughout this book is that Apple is so disciplined in how they do things and so consistent in what they do that. Love them or hate them, we all have a sense of their why. We know what they believe. Most of us didn't read books about them. We don't personally know Steve Jobs. We haven't spent much time roaming the halls of Apple's headquarters to get to know about their culture. The clarity we have for what Apple believes comes from one place and one place only. Apple. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And Apple says and does only the things they believe. If what you do doesn't prove and what you believe, then no one will know what your why is, and you'll be forced to compete on price, services, quality, features, and benefits. The stuff of commodities. Apple has a clear and loud megaphone and is exceptionally good at communicating its stories. The salary test. In order to improve how and what we do, we constantly look at what others are doing. We attend conferences, read books, talk to friends and colleagues to get their input and advice, and sometimes we are also dispensers of advice. We are in great pursuit of understanding the best practices of others to help guide us. But it is a flawed assumption that what works for one organization will work for another. Even if the industries, sizes, and market conditions are the same, the notion that if it's good for them, it's good for us is simply not true. I know of a company with an amazing culture. When asked, the employees say they love that all the conference rooms have ping pong tables in them. Does that mean if you are put in ping pong tables in all your conference rooms, your culture would improve? Of course not. But this is an idea of best practices. The idea of the idea that copying what or how things are done at high performing organizations will inherently work for you is just not true. Like the Ferrari and the Honda, what is good for one company is not necessarily good for another. Put simply, best practices are not always the best. It is not just what or how you do things that matters. What matters more is that what and how you do things is consistent with your why. Only then will your practices indeed be best. There is nothing inherently wrong with looking to others to learn what they do. The challenge is knowing what practices or advices to follow. Fortunately, there is a simple test to apply. You can apply to find out exactly what and how is right for you. It's a simple metaphor called celery test. Imagine you go to a dinner party and somebody comes up to you and says, "You know what you need in your organization? M&Ms. If you're not using M&Ms in your business, you're leaving money on the table." Somebody else comes up to you and says, "You know what you need? Rice milk. The data shows that all the people are buying rice milk these days. You should be selling rice milk in this economy." While you're standing over the punch bowl, yet another person offers some sage advice. "Oreo cookies," he says. "We've made millions from implementing Oreo cookies in our organization. You've got to do it." Still, somebody else comes up to you and says, "Celery. You've got to sell celery." You get all this great advice from all these highly accomplished people. Some of them are in the same industry, some of them are more successful than you. Some of them have offered similar advice to others with great success. Now, what do? You go to the supermarket and you buy celery, rice, Oreos, and M&Ms. Spend a lot of time at the supermarket walking the aisles. You spend a lot of money because you buy everything, but you may or may not get any value from some or all of these products. There is no guarantee. Worse, if your budget constrained, you had to whittle down your choices again. And which one do you choose? But one thing is for sure, when you're standing in the line at the supermarket with all these items in your arms, your celery, rice milk, Oreos, and M&Ms, nobody can see what you believe. What you do is supposed to serve as tangible proof of what you believe, and you bought everything. But what if you knew your why before you went to a super healthy market? What if your why is to only do things that are healthy, to always do things that are good for
You
your
can
body?
stop, Bhavish. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Devamma, what did you like about this? What Bhavish read? What did you understand?
Ma'am, I have understood that we should we should produce the product which is useful for the customers, we should know their needs first, then only we can produce the products. Eh, then uh, we should enhance our skills to create our own opportunities. Then we should face our problems with our own confidence. No one will solve our problems. We should only solve our problems. That's it now.
Okay. And what do you think, Bhavesh? What did you like about what you read? I'm going to treat you like a student instead of the
Yeah.
reader.
Yes, ma'am. So firstly, Ron Bradder, he said that we should think about a why perspective from everything that we, have in our life. All the everyday things that we look at, we should look at them from a different perspective, from a perspective like why, so that we can think about how to make a particular thing better or how to make a particular industry better. These things that he followed made him a better person in life, and he was able to help countless people in the Middle East, Africa, by providing them a path in their life, by showing them that the path they follow is not always the right one, or that they can have new paths and other paths that no one has ever explored that they can follow. Then also, he gave us the example of Apple, which is an industry that is always trying to do things differently. Back when the Macintosh was not that famous, Apple came up with the famous advertisement to be different. Not a lot of industries liked the advertisement, but the people, they absolutely loved it. Even if they liked or didn't like the product that Apple made, they liked the company itself, which in the long term is a good thing for Apple. This will in turn create a brand loyalty for the company. And then when people actually like the product that they make, they'll buy it, even if there are the same products for a cheaper price in other companies. This is because the brand loyalty that Apple has created with their advertisements and everything. And
Yes.
lastly,
Yeah. Go ahead, Bhavesh.
yeah. And lastly, they were speaking about taking advice. There might be different things and different advices that different people give, but we should understand what advices will be best for us and best suited for us, and then